Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present my case study on the CMMS training that I did. I am an occupational therapist. I work in a hand and upper limb rehab clinic at Roseacres Hospital. It is a private hospital based in the east of Johannesburg in South Africa. So even though we are a private hospital, I would say about 90% of our caseload is injury on duty patients, which brings me to the patient that I used for my case study. She's a 40-year-old female. She works as a machine operator in the steel industry, and she sustained a crash injury to her right dominant index finger on the 26th of April whilst at work. And she sustained a comminuted fracture to the proximal phalanx. She had surgery on the same day with the dorsal plates and screws, and also a repair to the extensor tendon of the index finger. She was initially seen by the physiotherapy department. We're not sure how the referral to us got lost, but it does sometimes happen. And then she got referred to the OT department on the 30th of May, which was about a month after her initial injury. And the physiotherapist actually referred her to us to see if we can assist with scar management, and also to see if we have a technique that we can use to see if we can regain more movement. So my colleague initially saw her on the 30th of May, and she presented with edema in the index finger and across the palm of her hand. She presented with dense and adhesed scars in the dorsal aspect of the proximal phalanx, and also decreased range of movement with no active movement in the distal phalanx, and then quite decreased movement in the proximal phalanx. So initial intervention with my colleague basically included active range of movement exercises, edema and scar management, which was inclusive of a pressure garment and some sicker care. And I think it was about the last 2 sessions, due to limited movement regained, she tried static progressive splinting. So she said ended up seeing her for 5 sessions over a 4-week period. And seeing as there was no significant improvement, she referred it to me to see if she would be a CMMS candidate. So she was referred to me on the 28th of June. So that's about 2 months along the line since her injury happened. And on that day, I assessed her, and then I introduced the CMMS techniques to her. I showed her an example of an old cast of a previous patient that we've used, just to show what it would actually look like, and then also showed her some photos and videos of successful cases that we've had. I had another colleague that was also familiar with the CMMS technique, so she could pass some success videos and stories on to me to use. With a specific patient, her greatest concern was her ability to work with her dominant hand casted. So what we ended up doing is just phone her HR department, and then just basically informing them about the process, what it would involve, and what we are hoping to achieve. We sent them some videos as well, and they were quite keen for us to try the technique, and were willing for her to go through that process of being accommodated a little bit more in terms of productivity demands at work. So when she came to me, she presented with a little bit better movement since her first session. She had about a 45-degree gain, 40 to 45 degree gain, but she presented with an intrinsic plus pattern. And she was about, when trying to make a fist, her index finger, tip of the index finger was about 6 centimeters from the distal palmar crease. So yeah, this would just be her movement pattern that she had. All right, Temi, can you make me a fist? Fist, all the fingers down. Very good, and open up. Okay, do that again for me. Okay, so it's so you could see there is a little bit of wrist movement there involved, and most of the movement was initiated from the MPs. And relax it open. There we go. And again, close for me. Very good. Quite a bit of effort to close that finger. So I initially put her into a intrinsic minus cast, which I have to say I found it quite challenging to follow that little creases of the proximal phalanxes, just because the height of the little finger's proximal phalanx crease was so low. So eventually I was like, I'm going to focus more on the index finger, the crease there, just to make sure that I get that one perfect. I'm still working on trying to figure that curve out as I cast now. And I did put her MPs in a little bit of flexion, just slightly. Okay, so Temi, I want you to imagine these dots on this that I put on with pen, and these dots here at the bottom. And I want you to match those dots for me. So make into that hook, match the dots, go down with that index finger. There we go. And relax up. And again, match the dots. That's a better one. And relax. So she was instructed to wear this for 3 weeks. And then I gave her my personal number and asked her to send me weekly videos, just so that I can monitor how she's doing. So this is a video that she sent me, I think it was 2 weeks after casting. So it was just past halfway. And what stood out for me quite a bit was just how much better the movement pattern of that index finger was. So this was actually at work, so it's quite noisy. But yeah, she was just engaging that finger so much better. I remember about this video, I remember jumping up and down of excitement and sending her a message back to say she's doing so well and it's clearly working. And I was also so excited to see this tethered cast. It just showed me that she's really excited in using that finger. Yeah, she did quite well with the first cast. So after the 3 weeks with the first cast, she came back. And what I didn't bargain on was on how much I had to negotiate and convince her to put a second one on. She was someone from the beginning, she's quite aware of aesthetics and how it looks and convenience of the cast and the inconvenience thereof. But she was just not keen to go into another cast. So I put everything away, put all the casting stuff away, and I just had a proper long chat with her for about 30 minutes, just having a proper chat with her about what we've gained, showing her her own videos where she started and the last one that she sent me and the improvement that's happened in 3 weeks. So after some chatting, she was then willing to go into a cast again. So I put her in intrinsic plus cast. I think looking back, I think I could have maybe gotten her MPs in a little bit more flexion, even though on that day it did feel like I got it into proper flexion, but looking at the photos, it seems like I feel like I could have gotten maybe more. But yeah, I put her in an intrinsic plus. Again, the creases are quite difficult, the distal palmar crease, and then getting sufficient like support in the palm of the hand, and also just keeping an eye on not getting that web space too bulky. I found that quite challenging. But yeah, so that's the second cast that we made.
First exercise you do is again where you
and I just showed her again the exercise, or the exercise that stays the same, and then also including the new exercise. Just telling her to do it as often as she can.
And hook again. All right.
And just comparing the first cast that she made with the exercises, and then the second one, just the ease of that index finger moving, just that alone made me excited. But yeah, so she went into that. She was instructed then to stay in that one for 2.5 weeks. For some reason she was just not keen on 3 weeks, but 2.5 weeks seemed too solid. Not sure why the 3 days made it different. Maybe just sounded shorter. So again, I instructed her to just keep sending me some videos, and then this was about a week after the second casting. She sent me a video of how things are going. Yeah, so she was doing quite well. I did instruct her to put some Coban on at night, just for that swelling in the index finger. I was a little bit apprehensive to put in the Coban during the day. I wanted, what I found with our patients, it kind of reminds them that there's something wrong, and then they don't want to bend it. So I instructed her to sleep with Coban on, unless she found that the finger got swollen quite significantly throughout the day, but she never reported that. All right, so after the 2.5 weeks, even if I wanted to cast her longer, I don't think she would have allowed me. And I would have needed to then go back on my word, which I didn't want to do. So we went into a bivalve cast. So I asked her to wear it for 2 to 3 weeks, and I basically told her what we're going to look at to determine if she can discharge the bivalve or not. She also got some additional sessions where we focused on maintaining the range that she's won and improving her hand function and increasing the strength in her hand. There was an extension lag of the proximal phalanx. I did discuss with her the possibility of doing like a little static progressive extension casting. She was just not keen on that. But both myself, my colleague, and the physio colleague, we felt that that might have not made a difference, because there was quite a bony end feel to that PIP going into extension. And I think I was just also a little bit apprehensive, not wanting to lose any flexion again. So yeah, she was, even though she was very much into aesthetics before, like I think as her function improved, she got less worried about how it looked. So on discharge, so that's her ranges that she got. So the ranges in brackets is where she started when I saw her, but she got about a 70, I think it was about a 70-degree total range of movement improvement just from casting, which I think was quite good. Her strength was comparable to her left hand, and it started at 12 kilograms, and then her pinch, 2-point pinch, and her palmar pinch also improved quite nicely. And where she started with a 6 centimeter distal palmar crease distance, she ended off in a 2 centimeter, which is still quite a bit. But I think just in general, it looks so much better.
And change to the side. Open. Close, I mean, sorry. There we go, and open, and turn down, and close, and open.
So I asked her to complete the upper limb function index again. So before I started with the casting, she was very despondent about her hand. So she scored quite low. And on discharge, she scored very high. I think the only thing that she still complained about is just using a knife. I think that was the one thing that stood out for her. But yeah, total range of movement improved with 70 degrees, and she reported to cope with all her work demands. Repetitive and prolonged use of her right hand, not giving her any problems, and also strength demands of her work. So the lessons that I've learned, I think what helped me the most with applying the CMMS technique was the example of the cast. I feel some of the patients, they're very visual, so it helped for them to see what it looks like and what it would involve and what it does, that it's basically just telling them that we want to block the wrist and the MPs, and it just gives them a nice visual representation of it. I think the other thing that helped a lot was the photos and videos that I could show them of other patients, but also their own videos. It was nice for them, especially with this patient, when I had to talk to her about getting a second cast on, just that whole conversation about look where you started and look where you are now. I think it was just such a nice way for her to see her progress, like visually. So I think that helped a lot, and also helped in terms of just monitoring her exercises, encouraging her, basically just being a cheerleader, sending the videos and just commending her on her hard work that she did. I think the other thing that also helps is just to get, just for the buy-in with patients, is just really addressing their concerns. Like with her, a great concern was her ability to work with a cast on, and just listening to the concerns and problem solving with her and phoning the work to actually just involve them as well. I think it just helped so much with the buy-in of this patient. I don't think she would have done it if she wasn't comfortable with that. In terms of the casting, as I mentioned before, just getting those creases to allow the proper movement, I think that was the most difficult part. And I think it's something, I think it does get easier the more you do it. But I've realized that I constantly have to just check in with that. And when I apply the CMMS, it's just to, before the patient goes, just make sure that those creases are not blocked. For me as well was just the duration of wearing the cast. Most of the patients, they're injury on duty, they're factory workers. So I mean, I let her wear the first cast for 3 weeks, and that cast came back in a horrific state, which was fine. I was happy with that because it just showed me she's using the hand and she's exercising. Because I've had patients that have it on for 3 weeks and the cast is still clean. But and then for the second one was 2.5 weeks, which was a little bit better, but still quite tethered and run through. So I know with the cases that I've recently had, I let them come back a little bit sooner and just redo the cast again, because the integrity of the cast is quite a problem when they've been wearing it for so long. It doesn't give sufficient wrist support anymore or anything. So yeah, I let them come back sooner now, and every 2 weeks, and then change the cast, and that seems to make a difference. Not necessarily changing the pattern of the cast, but just changing it so that it's nice and durable again. But yeah, lots of every time I cast, it feels like I'm learning something new, either how to do it cleaner, I remember the first time doing it, it was so messy. But every time I do it, it's like I'm making less of a mess, and that's already a win for me. Yeah, so I've really learned a lot with this process, and it's really I'm such an advocate for this now, and I think it's such a brilliant skill to have in anyone's toolbox for those cases when you get the stiff hand. So yeah, thank you so much, Robin, for teaching this skill and being so willing to share the skill and yeah, all your tips. So thank you for again for the opportunity to do this. Have a lovely day.